also how you're going to be able to interact, the teaching style. So every country this is a really great way to find university. Require that you already speak the language there. Dutch application process, really helpful resources. Hey guys, so this video is going to be all about the process of applying to study abroad and finding universities, finding the right country for you, all those little details and things that are really important to know. So my name is Ariel. I am a 17-year-old Canadian student. I graduated in 2020 at 16 and took a gap year to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And in that year, I decided I wanted to apply to study in Europe because why not, get a different worldview, get an experience in a different culture, and it just sounded like an amazing opportunity. But I very quickly realized there were no resources, no help for people doing what I wanted to do, not just doing a semester or a year abroad through a Canadian university, but actually doing my full 4 or 3 year bachelor degree somewhere way different. So I thought I would make a little video now that I have successfully moved here to the Netherlands for my bachelor's in psychology, and just do a video talking about the application process, how I found a system that works for me, and how I can kind of help you guys, because I think this is something that more people should totally do. Okay, so we're gonna go really fast, so buckle up, get yourself a matcha latte, get ready to go, whatever you need. So step 1 is going to be picking your major. So I know that this is something that's really difficult to do, and all through high school people are asking what are you gonna do, what are you gonna do, and it's just so hard to know. But this is definitely something that will be very helpful when picking countries, picking everything, especially because in North America a lot of universities do a 4-year degree, and your first year is just kind of general studies. In Europe, a lot of degrees are 3 years, so you go straight into your concentration. Also, this will come into play depending on if you want to transfer that degree back to North America or just any other country. It's really important to know if it'll be accepted. For example, if you're going into healthcare, doing something like nursing, and so you want to do that in Italy, Canada or America may not accept that degree just because of the way it's taught, the way they go through procedures, all of that sort of stuff. Same with engineering or something. Just it's really important to be aware of that and take that into consideration, because that would be terrible if you take all the time to get a full degree and then you find out it's not applicable for going into a master's or going straight into the work field back in your home country. So going off of that, step 2 is going to be then picking a country, and something bouncing off of my last point. Knowing what you want to major in can really help you pick a country, because some areas will have really strong industry. Say if you want to go into engineering, maybe some country has a really strong industry in engineering and there'll be lots of opportunity for internship, lots of funding for that. Or say you're going into philosophy or psychology, maybe you really want to get a different worldview, maybe you love the Japanese history and their worldview on those sort of things and you want to learn more about that. There's so much opportunity, so it can be really cool to play with that if you know what you want to major in. Okay, it's also really important to consider the language when you're applying, because some countries will have a higher percentage of English speakers versus lower. For example, the Netherlands has around 90% of English speakers, whereas Spain has 27% and Italy has 34%. Those are just really rough estimates and they're a little dated, but they give you the general idea that some countries have a lot of English speakers, where some have a very strong presence of native speakers, and that's obviously to be expected going anywhere in the world. And if you're bilingual and you know the language of where you want to go already, that's awesome, good for you. I wasn't. This is really important because of culture shock and also how you're going to be able to interact at your university. For example, if it's a very low percentage of English speakers, it can be really difficult to communicate with, say, administration, your faculty, other teachers, other students. You might just feel a little bit isolated, and especially, this is really important, your faculty could be very, very small. If it's a very small English speaking program, and there could say be not a lot of funding, really small faculty, not the greatest teachers, whatnot, and it could just overall not be a great experience. Even if it's a really well recommended school, if they have a really small English speaking program, it's probably not going to be the best quality education. Maybe that's not super important for you, but that's definitely something to take in consideration. Also, extracurriculars, opportunities around the city, internships, those can be really negatively affected if there's not a strong presence of speakers of your language. Now, this like culture shock thing was something that I was really worried about, especially moving by myself, being so young, doing all this by myself. I really wanted to feel welcome and feel like I was a part of my community, and so that was something that really was a really big factor for me. Okay, another thing to consider when it comes to countries is the teaching style. So every country is obviously going to have a different system, different way of going through the year, different way of exams, and that's really important to know for your personal style and something maybe you want to try out, something you know does not work for me. So for example, one of the reasons I wanted to apply to study in Italy is because I loved how they do a lot of oral exams. So I just thought, even though that sounds a little terrifying, it means you get a really good application and understanding of the material. I also loved how in the Netherlands they do this thing called problem-based learning at some of the universities, and just the way they interact with students and teachers is really focused on applying material, and that's something that was really important to me, not just, sitting in a lecture, writing things down. Anyways, every country is going to be different. Some have a lot of interaction between students and professors in lectures, some have none. And again, Google and YouTube can really help you if you want to know more about one specific area. But it's definitely something to consider because not everywhere is going to be the same as your home country. Lastly, tuition costs is going to be an important factor. Maybe not for you, but for me, as someone who was trying to pay for everything themselves, this is really important for me. For example, the UK has a really crazy high international costs for students, whereas places like Germany and Italy, it's quite a bit lower. This really depends on government funding and also what priority they have for international students, but it's definitely something to consider before you get your hopes and dreams absolutely crushed when you find out that international tuition is $50,000. Just putting it out there. Oh, give me a second. Let me catch my breath. Okay, number 3, finding universities. Now this is the killer one. Okay, to give you an example of how difficult this can be, when I got to this part of the process, I decided, okay, I'm going to apply to the Netherlands, Germany, Italy, Austria, Spain, Japan, and then a few other places I was curious about. And I ended up, by the end of everything, only being able to apply to universities in the Netherlands and Italy. Just finding degrees in my program that were English taught and also applicable back home. For some reason, I decided to start this process by just making a bunch of Pinterest boards for the universities that look pretty to me, and then I thought it'd be cool to study in. I mean, it's really fun and it was really motivating for me, but not productive at all. Probably wouldn't recommend. It gives you a bit of insight into me. Okay, anyways, so my initial process for this was really slow. I would find a university I liked through Google or whatnot. I would spend hours watching YouTube videos about it, trying to navigate their university webpage through Google Translate, and then just to find out that they don't teach psychology in English, or they didn't have the program I wanted in English or whatnot. So it was a really long process, but I finally found something that worked by the end. So I thought, okay, let me do this real time with you guys and give you guys 2 examples. Give you guys 2 examples by using 2 universities that I did end up applying to. So let's go. If I just look up, say Netherlands universities, you'll see here that there's just tons and tons and tons. This is another thing. Another reason why it's important to know what you want to major in, because some universities will be really strong in a specific major or a specific area, have lots of funding, etc. So what I found works for me is you're going to go to this webpage right here, top universities, and here they'll tell you a lot about some of the top ranked universities. Also a little thing here if you want to know more about applications and visas, funding, all of that, student cities. it just gives you a lot more information and it's a lot more streamlined. So that one is really helpful. Another website that's really helpful is this website right here. So it's called Study Portals and it's the bachelor's version. If you're going to your master's, there's also a webpage for that, but we're going to be focusing on the bachelor's. So right at the top here, you can put in information. So for me, we're going to do psychology and we're going to put in Netherlands. And you search. Right away, they'll show you how many degrees there are, and you can just see all of them here in this major I chose. You can either do like their top choices or lowest tuition fee. You can also see the fee here on the side. The fees aren't exactly accurate, I found. Sometimes they show like the price for fellow European students, so don't take this to heart. It's also important to check on the actual webpage, but it'll give you a rough idea. So here you can kind of scroll through everything, and if you find one that you like, okay, so once you find one that you like, you can click on it. And so here I've brought up the one for my university, and it'll tell you a little bit more information about it, more about if it's on campus, its focus, everything like that. And if you're like, oh, this looks pretty cool, it'll show you like the world ranking, which I don't find very important, but maybe you're really fussy about that. Anyway, you can click more on it. I'll tell you more about the actual university. So as you can see, this is a really great way to find universities. Here, let's do another one. Let's say if you wanted to study nursing, Italy. Let's see, I haven't obviously looked at this to see, okay, they've got one. So, you know, it just gives you an example. And say if you're not sure what you want to do, you can also take a quiz to see what's the best fit for you. You can see rankings per country. You can also see this. Another really great thing you can do is you can check. So once you do know what you want to study, you can see what countries have the best rankings for that specific program. Say if you want to go into engineering, I don't, but if you did, you can see this rated by their picks. Here you can also select by which country, the range for fee, durations, you know, the type of it, everything. It's really easy. Another thing you can totally just do is to search on Google, like best countries to study psychology, you know, and there'll be tons of different websites. Again, I think the problem with this for me is just the overload of information. Like there'll be 1,000 different things. Again, top universities was one I really liked, just to kind of streamline things, you know, because there'll be a million different opinions out there, but I just liked how they rank things and all of that. And search by region. So let's go Europe, and then you can learn more about that university, learn more about that program. So those are two websites I really recommend to not deal with the insane amount of information on Google, but to just streamline right to what you want to do. So once you've found universities that you like, the next thing I'm going to recommend is going straight to their university webpage. I'm going to take you guys through the Italian university I applied to, just to give you a bit of an example. So of course everything is going to be in the native language, so I recommend using Google Translate, or some of them will also have an area where you can switch the language, which is very lovely. Not all of them have that, just a warning. So the first thing you're going to want to do is sometimes they'll have it right on the homepage, you know, choose your degree program or just use the search bar. So we're going to go to their courses. We're going to go psychology. And now here's the really important thing. So you might find that they have a ton of programs in your desired major, which is awesome, but it's really important to know what language it's being taught in. So some of them are going to be really tricky to find the language, just a warning. Some of them, like this website, it's right there. You can choose what language it is. Obviously in Italian there's going to be way more because that's the native language, but you can choose English. And you can see the programs that they have here. So you can see which ones are master's degree and which ones are bachelor's. And it'll give you all the information, duration, you know, what language it's taught in, where it's taught. And typically they'll obviously give you information on the application period It's very important to be aware of what application is for international students. We're going to do one more, and I'm going to show you an example of a university that did not have a program in my desired language. So, for example, we're going to go to the University of Vienna because I really wanted to study here, but that's fine. So again, everything is in English. Okay, that's really helpful. So of course, the first thing you're going to want to do is find bachelor programs. Every university is going to have a little bit of a different thing. Some of them are going to require, as you can see here, require that you already speak the language there. And here we go. You can see it's only taught in German. I'm showing you guys just an example of my personal degree webpage. Usually they'll show you on the side or somewhere some more information about the length and when the application deadline is. Here you can see it's in numerous fixes and selection, which I will talk about more later. You can see that there's open days. A lot of universities do this, which is basically a way to get to know more about the university virtually. They also offer virtual web tours, things like that. They'll have like students you can get in contact with, ask them more about it. This isn't the same for every university, but a lot of universities that have lots of English speaking programs will cater to international students, and they'll want you to be able to get to know the university no matter where you are. You can also find out about the admission requirements, so what you're going to need, another thing I will talk about in a moment. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to really briefly mention is going to be paperwork. So you may think once you found the perfect university, okay, you're set, you're good, everything's perfect, you just need to wait for the application period. That is wrong. Don't ever believe that. So, one thing to be prepared for is going to be an insane amount of paperwork. So, a few things that I found really important to have before you go into the application process is of course going to be your passport. You're going to want to make sure it's renewed, make sure that you have that it's not going to expire before your program ends. A lot of universities will already mention that when you're applying and they want to see a copy of your passport, they're going to specify that it can expire, say, before it starts, before a year in or something like that. Another thing is to have your graduation certificate and transcript of grades, or at least be aware that it will probably need to be translated or notarized or certified. Like for example, when I was applying to Italy, they specified that it would, if I got enrolled there, I would need to get it legally translated in Vancouver and also notarized, and it was going to be like a whole thing to get it legalized for the Italian government. Every country is going to do it a bit differently. Just be aware that there's going to be lots of paperwork, and of course the university will help you with that. They're not just going to like throw you into the deep end and like expect you to figure it all out, but it's good to be aware that government paperwork can take a long time. So definitely having your passport ready to go, birth certificate, yeah, just be prepared that there's going to be a lot of organizing to do. Another thing to be aware of is entry requirements for different universities. So since they're wanting to get an understanding of your education and your knowledge on like a universal scale, some places will either have entrance exams, or they'll require like an SAT or something like that. For example, in Italy, when I was applying, they wanted me to have my SAT. So of course, as a Canadian student, that's not something that we really do. So I studied, and then my testing site got canceled because of COVID. So I still applied, I didn't get in, and they were kind of like, yeah, sorry, you kind of really needed to have that. But anyways, whereas in the Netherlands, they'll often do something called like a selection process. I'll touch more on that in a second. And that's just important to be aware that some universities will have different requirements for entry, and really to just take notice of those little details because they can be really important when you're applying. So the last thing I'm going to do is touch a little bit more on the Dutch application process because that's the one I was most familiar with. So there's two versions of it. The first is going to be just your basic application. So programs in the Netherlands are either numerous fixes or just like standard. So numerous fixes just means that there's a limited number of spots available for that program. So they're going to do something called a selection procedure. So for example, psychology is a numerus fixus in the Netherlands because it's such like a highly competitive and lots of people want to go into it. So basically you do a selection procedure, which is you apply once you pass like the basic requirements, like this GPA, this percentage of grades, then you take a entrance exam of sort. Basically you'll watch a few psychology lectures from the university, maybe also like a little stats quiz, and then you'll have to answer a bunch of questions, and then also do a personal profile, so just talking about yourself, why you want to study, all of that fun jazz. And then you'll get like a ranking number in like a month or two, and based on the ranking number you either get accepted or you get waitlisted. So for example, like for me, I applied to Rotterdam and also here in Maastricht. So your ranking number will determine, like some universities, they have a cutoff of 500 or 600 depending on how big the program is. And so if you're say like 550, then that means 50 people either need to refuse their spot or not end up going for you to then get an offer of admission. So the very last thing I wanted to give you guys was just some really helpful resources through this process. The first thing I really recommend is Reddit, actually. You can find tons of subpages either for, say, like study in the Netherlands is one I really recommend if you're wanting to apply, study at a Dutch university. That one has tons of information. When the rankings all came out for the numerus fixus programs, everyone was active on there, just like freaking out. It was really fun, actually. Terrifying, but fun. Yeah, there'll be even subreddits for specific universities, specific programs, and you can just ask questions on there if you want to know more about a program or whatnot. Secondly, YouTube, you can find tons of YouTubers from different countries, like Italian students, Dutch students, German students, if you want to just either watch like a vlog to learn more about what a day looks like there, or some, I can list a few that I found in my process helpful in talking a little bit more about the teaching style at a certain country or a certain university. Also me, of course. But yeah, really just like I'd suggest just having fun with the process. It's super exciting and really fun. The idea of doing something like this, be prepared for lots of paperwork, lots of struggles, but I think in the end it's totally worth it for an experience like this. This was just an overview of the application process and finding universities, but if you guys want, I can totally give more detail on the Dutch application process and things like that if you guys would like. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Hope this was helpful. Have a great day.